You're watching Saturday Anime on the Sci-Fi Channel.
Greetings, this is Reverend Paul, and this, of course, is Studio Chojin Raw. Today, I feel like is as good of a time as any to continue our conversation on the topic of La Blue Girl. Now, the last time we spoke about La Blue Girl, I spoke mainly about the anime and the manga. Today, I think it would be kind of cool to talk about the live-action adaptation of La Blue Girl. La Blue Girl, Revenge of the Schema Realm was released in 1995 and is the first part in a three-part La Blue Girl live-action trilogy. I feel like it's fair to say that the La Blue Girl live-action trilogy is a lot like Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy. That's not to say that the La Blue Girl live-action trilogy is good. What I mean to say is that the La Blue Girl live-action trilogy is similar to Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy in the sense that the La Blue Girl live-action trilogy, it is a reinvention of the character of Miko Mito, and it is a reinterpretation of all the ideas that were presented in the manga. The live-action La Blue Girl trilogy does not follow the storyline from the manga or the anime. It tells its own unique story and it reinterprets the characters in completely different ways. The film was directed by Yo Kobayashi and it was written by Koshiro Aka. And as far as I could tell, these dudes have done nothing other than the La Blue Girl live action trilogy. These motherfuckers, their career begins and ends with these three movies. Some people might see that as a failure, but I actually think that is pretty awesome. Because what I think happened is that these dudes realized they were not going to make anything more awesome than their La Blue Girl live action trilogy. They looked at what they made and they looked at what they accomplished and they looked at each other and said, it ain't gonna get any better than this, pal. And they retired undefeated. I guess what should be to nobody's surprise, the cast of La Blue Girl Revenge of the Schema Realm is made up mostly of unknown actors. In fact, the biggest star in the La Blue Girl live action films is Saya Hidaka, who at this time was a pretty big name in the Japanese adult video market. She was being featured in a lot of videos. She was being featured in a lot of men's magazines of the day. She was a really big deal, but I don't know that she's necessarily the right person for Miko Mito. She's cute, but she doesn't really look like Miko Mito. In fact, I feel like Saya Hidaka looks more like Fubuki Kai. And the chick from the third La Blue Girl movie, the girl who plays Fuka, she actually looks more like Miko. So it is kind of weird that Saya doesn't look a lot like Miko, but what I do like about Saya is that she reminds me of Reina from Ultraman Tiga. And the cool thing about Reina in Ultraman Tiga is that she's brave, she's determined, she's a fucking badass guts officer. But what makes her really cool is that she wears a fucking swimsuit under her uniform. And you know that's a chick who likes to party. That is a chick who is ready to go 24/7, and that is why Reina is my favorite fucking Ultraman character, and that is why I am willing to give Saya Hidaka a chance as Miko Mito. Similar to the anime, the movie begins by explaining to us that the Miroku clan are a clan of female ninjas who are dedicated to fighting the Schema. Although this version of La Blue Girl changes things up by combining the Suzuka clan and the Schema and basically just making them into one thing where the Schema are a clan of ninja sex demons. And it's like, okay, strangely in this world, that change actually makes complete sense. So as per usual, the Schema are locked away in the sex demon world. And for some reason at this point in time, the leader of the Schema decides it is time to send one of his demonic minions to the human world to kidnap a Miroku ninja girl so they can continue on their demonic bloodline. So the king of the demons tells his trusted minion Hanzaki, who kind of looks like a leech scrotum. Like if you mutated a scrotum in a leech, that's kind of what Hanzaki looks like to me. So he tells Hanzaki, you gotta go to the human world and you gotta get me some Miroku ninja clan ass. But then we are introduced to Miko Mito, or at least the movie version of Miko Mito, who actually isn't Miko Mito at all. This is Miko Bito. Okay. It turns out Miko's friend Mizaki, her parents are going out of town for the weekend. So Mizaki decides to throw a wild party that only a Japanese schoolgirl can throw, and she tells Miko and her friend Shizuka that they totally have to come to her party because it's going to be awesome. And Miko is like, yes, we are totally going to this party, but all is not well because Hanzaki the Scrotum Leech takes control of this dude. There's this guy and he's like banging his girlfriend in a car in the rain, scene. And this is actually a really cool scene. And it feels like it was inspired by that scene in Legend of the Demon Womb where the fucking dude is driving and he's getting blown. Then like Demon Takeaki comes and he fucking like cuts the dude's head off. That was a very cool atmospheric scene in Legend of the Demon Womb. And this sequence feels very much like an homage to that scene. Also, this is a kind of great atmospheric classic slasher scene where a dude is hooking up with the chick, plenty of gratuitous nudity and grinding on each other. This is the kind of scene that would fit perfectly in a Friday the 13th movie. Suddenly, the Schema monster comes and it kills both these people and it takes control of this dude. And if you are a Kamen Rider fan, this dude might look familiar because he is the dude who played Go Gadal Ba, the leader of the Go group in Kamen Rider Kuga. And it actually makes a lot of sense too, because every time they would go to the Go group in Kamen Rider Kuga, I kind of felt like I was watching a porn. Kamen Rider alum Masato Gunji plays Hanzaki's human form. And for some reason, Hanzaki is a water demon. He has water-based demon powers. And every time you see Hanzaki in the movie, he's always damp. He's either a guy who has fucking water-based powers or he is like the thirstiest motherfucker in the world because he cannot stop fucking sweating. And it seems like in the script, they wanted to have these scenes where Hanzaki did that anime thing where he like sank into the ground. But obviously this movie is like super low budget and they don't have the effects to have him do that. So because he's a water demon, they just have him slowly sit down in a pool. This demon's amazing ability is to do something that you and I could both do. He's just a really wet guy sitting down slowly in a pool. Anyway, this extremely damp demon makes its way to Mizaki's house, and Hanzaki, the demon that just possessed this dude, now possesses Mizaki. And so Shizuka shows up because she wants to get down to party with Mizaki, and she starts to hear the weird moans coming from the other room. And this is actually a pretty interesting sequence because we are getting this low budget live action interpretation of a La Blue Girl tentacle porn scene. I actually think this works really well. It's kind of like a cross between a Dove commercial and a Cronenberg movie, but it's interesting. It's this weird like erotic scene that's being juxtaposed with these weird Cronenberg-esque appendages. And the fucking tentacles in this movie look weird as fuck. They kind of look like a bad dragon dildo that melted in the sun, and then somebody was like, nah, this shit is still good, just pour tons of fucking lube on it. Tentacle porn, by the way, is something for a long time I felt like did not work in live action. If the great Hitomi Tanaka, with her amazing boobs, cannot make a good tentacle porn movie, I didn't think it was possible. But then I watched The Eternals, and The Eternals has one of the best tentacle porn scenes I had ever seen. And then I realized the missing element. The Eternals was directed by a woman, and I think in order for tentacle porn to work in a movie, you need to have a female director. I really do love this hallway sequence. You have to admit, for a low-budget horror movie, this is pretty cool. It's almost Lovecraftian, where Shizuka is hearing the sounds of Mizaki being violated, and she's going insane from hearing the sounds and the cries. This is every H.P. Lovecraft story ever written, where somebody just comes across some weird monster from another dimension, and just being in their presence drives them insane. I was impressed by this. So anyway, Miko shows up, the demon gets away, but Miko suspects something is not right with Misaki. So Miko goes back home and she tells her sister Miyu she has to come to day 2 of the party and give her a hand in figuring out if Misaki is possessed or not. I kind of like the movie's version of Miyu. She's not a porn producer like in the manga, and she's not an actress like in the anime. In the movie, she's a TV reporter. And, you know, I can see that makes sense. The movie also makes Miyu a member of the Moroku ninja clan as well, and she is a ninja just as capable as Miko. In fact, you might even say she's an overall better ninja. So Miyu tags along with Miko, and both Bido sisters, in this case, go to day 2 of Misaki's sexy all-girl party extravaganza. And I have to admit, barring some naked swimming, Misaki's party is pretty fucking tame. A Jim Wynorski movie, this is not. I mean, the level of nudity in the La Blue Girl movie is pretty disappointing. And it makes me feel like Miko Mito is not really a cool party girl, which is even more of a reason why we need to figure out some reason to bring in Rina from Ultraman Tiga into to the LeBlue Girl movie. Rena knows how to fucking party. Like I said, she's a chick who wears a fucking bikini underneath her uniform. She is a crazy party girl. And if you followed her career, then you know just as well as I, she could get pretty kinky sometimes, which is why we totally needed Rena to liven up Misaki's party. So then, as to be expected, Hanzaki, who is still in control of Misaki's body, then possesses Shizuka, and he takes Shizuka and escapes to some weird demonic lair he has. Then Miko and Miyu, they suit up in their LeBlue Girl ninja outfits, which I kind of have mixed feelings on. On the one hand, I kind of like the fact they look like sexy Mortal Kombat 1 outfits. Like if there was a porn version of the original Mortal Kombat game, this is what I imagine the chicks would be wearing. But at the same time, I don't know, they just seem kind of strange. I think it's probably the fishnet over the body. It's kind of distracting. They fixed this in the second movie where they get rid of the fishnet and we see more skin, which is always better. Despite what people may say, less clothes, always more sexy than more clothes. Anyway, Miko and Miyu battle Hanzaki in the demon world. Similar to the first episode of the anime and first volume of the manga, Miyu is then attacked by Hanzaki, then Miko is attacked, and in a true disappointing fashion is unable to save herself. The way Miko is able to get out of this is by having Miyu save her, which makes Miko Mito, or Miko Bito in this case, seem really fucking useless. This Hanzaki showdown sequence in this weird demon lair where everything is all wet and he's in the water and then they're doing the weird LeBlue Girl tentacle stuff in there, it kind of works. It's kind of interesting. I love the fact that when this dude comes, his fucking orgasm is so intense that he cannot hold human form. He just goes from being a person and he's like, and then he's a fucking giant testicle monster again. He could not contain himself. The pussy was just too awesome for him. It's probably best to describe the LeBlue Girl live action as a time capsule, in the sense that it's really something you have to look at with the eyes of like 1995, because in all honesty, the live action LeBlue Girl movies are fucking awful. They are really, really bad, and the only way you're going to get anything out of them is if you are an obsessed fan like myself and you could figure out the nonsensical plot, because this movie makes no attempt in explaining anything. If you come into this cold, you will be completely fucking lost. Now, if you look at it with the eyes of 1995, this was a pretty crazy fucking movie. I mean, considering that you had these chicks actually acting out these tentacle porn sequences. Back in 1995, there was a real novelty to seeing all this shit. But with that said, I mean, there's much crazier shit on the internet now. You know, now that I kind of think about it, the LeBlue Girl live action kind of feels like an even more low budget version of Zeram. But what Zeram did well is it delivered on a cool alien creature. If your favorite part of LeBlue Girl were the creatures, then my friend, you are out of luck, because aside from our single testicle friend, there ain't too many monsters in this movie. I think the thing that's really the deal breaker for LeBlue Girl fans is the fact that this movie has no sex craft in it whatsoever. The entire premise of LeBlue Girl is that they are ninjas that fight people with sex, and in this movie, the Moroku clan does not fight people with sex. They're just regular ninjas who fight people with normal martial arts. This movie basically abandons the entire concept of LeBlue Girl, which I suppose is understandable, because I suppose a true faithful adaptation of LeBlue Girl would be very pornographic and would probably be very illegal in Japan, given their very strict censorship laws. So I suppose the creators of this film felt like, okay, we need to strip out the sex craft and we'll lean more into like conventional tokusatsu martial arts fighting. But to no one's surprise, the fight choreography in this film is not great. The sex scenes are not great, aside from like the naked pool scene and a shower scene, which is kind of cool. What I like about this shower scene is that it feels like a live action Street Fighter 2 Chun-Li washing her boob shower scene. It feels very consistent with Japanese animation. Aside from a handful of nude scenes, there really isn't much nudity in the LeBlue Girl movie. And so when you strip away all the cool stuff of LeBlue Girl, like the monsters, the sex craft, the nudity, you're left with a pretty bad, low-budget 90s movie that, aside from the novelty, it is not really worth anybody's time. But with that said, the film is not without its charm. The more I look at Saya Hidaka in her Miko Mito ninja outfit, I actually kind of like it, because even though she's not really a good Miko Mito, I think she would make a great Ayane from Dead or Alive. And even though this movie is super super low budget. I love the fact that it kind of feels like a cutscene from a Sega Saturn game. In fact, I feel like you could splice in cutscenes from Shinobi Legions and nobody would be able to tell the difference. The coolest thing I could say about this movie is that it feels like a porn version of Shinobi Legions, and people are free to take that however they please. So that wraps up this week's edition of Studio Chojin Raw. I hope you enjoyed the video. No mailbag this week, but if you would like to send me a question, if you'd like to tell me these videos are terrible, you could send me an email at studiochojin@gmail.com, make the subject raw, and I will be happy to read it on a future edition of this program. I'm almost done answering everybody's emails, so if you sent me an email before and you would like to send me another email, please do, because I'm starting to run out. So don't hesitate to ask me any question you like. So with that said, this is Reverend Paul saying, until we meet again.